Only about 9% of all properties on the market right now are selling at asking price. About 80% have been selling at below the asking price. And as you can see from this graph, this has been a worsening issue since 2022. There are now more properties on the market than there have been for over a decade. Most properties on the market are failing to sell than are selling across the UK. In London, for instance, just 14% of properties on the market are currently sold subject to contract. In Manchester, just 41% are. In Bristol, just 57% are. In Birmingham, again, just 57% of properties on the market are sold subject to contract. Without question, the property market is struggling. And in this video, I'm showing the tips I've learned to buying smart, having founded nationwide property businesses, British Homebuyers, a home buying company, and British Homesellers, an estate agency back in 2013. Literally tens of thousands of sellers, buyers, and investors trust me and the team to navigate this for them. Because there is a reason why passive income experts are warning of how buying a home to live in is not the investment it used to be. Because if you're not careful, buying a home can easily become a liability, not an asset that protects the money you've put into it. So let's start with the biggest mistake buyers make. The biggest mistake I see is people trust the asking price. They see a home listed at 300,000 and they think, well, that's what it's worth. To remind you, 8 out of 10 properties are selling below the asking price at the moment. So the reality is the asking price is just marketing. It's not value, it's not evidence, it's not what it will sell for. And right now, in many parts of the UK, 30%, upwards of even 90% of properties on the market in certain areas are not selling. So what does this teach us? That the market is full of overpriced property. And you might be thinking why that is. Because in reality, not everyone on the market needs to sell. Properties on the market are in reality a mix of badly and well-priced property from owners that would sell but not fast, want to sell but have months or years to wait, and those that need to sell. And the problem you have as a house hunter is you can't trust the marketing prices and you have no idea which type of seller corresponds to which property. You could have a seller that isn't fussed about selling but is reasonable about the price they want. But you could also have a situation with that same seller where they aren't reasonable about the price. And no amount of negotiation is going to land that property at a fair price for you. That is the danger zone where people risk overpaying for a house they fall in love with, competing for the property, not against other offers, other buyers, but against the seller standing firm. On the other hand, you can have the same situations with someone that needs to sell. But even then, they might try and hold out, rejecting good offers, but at some point, their need to sell may force their hand to accept something. And this adds another complexity as a house hunter. Not everyone buying is buying smart. You can't compete for a property, bid for a property against a fool. Because we all know property is worth what someone is willing to pay for it at the end of the day. But at the same time, buying a home is a deeply emotive thing. And if two buyers desperately want the same property, they can end up bidding the price up and overpaying between them. Or if a seller is firm on a price, you could end up having a buyer in effect bidding against the seller and overpaying. So the secret to buying smart is falling in love over and over again. For instance, what do you think the odds are of finding a property you love, offering the asking price, and the seller accepting that price? I think we can all agree the odds are pretty high. But the odds are also high that you're paying over the odds for that property. But what do you think the odds are of finding a property you love, you independently valuing it and offering what you think it's worth, and the seller accepting that offer? The odds of success there all of a sudden become far, far lower. And that is why it's important you don't just fall in love with the first person you kiss, the first property you love. You've got to get to know them. You've got to get to know the properties you're liking, loving, to make sure it's the one you don't just love, but that you don't end up regretting the purchase of if you ever need to sell. Because after all, many studies apparently rank selling a home as being more stressful than divorce. Now, I'm not divorced, but personally, I think divorce would probably be worse. But the point here is, although you may think you're buying with no intention of selling anytime soon, things can change, and you should buy with the knowledge of what your exit plan would be if you needed to sell. And importantly, if you needed to sell that property the day after you purchased it, for instance. But let's talk about, how do you know what to offer for a property to begin with? In my view, there's a number of steps. Step one, look at all properties online within 20% of your budget. So if your budget is £300,000, look at properties on the market as high as £360,000, for example. Step two, before you view a property you like, compare it to properties that are marketed as sold subject to contract within a quarter mile, half a mile and a mile. Do not compare against properties that have not sold, because properties on the market that haven't sold are examples of properties that are failing to sell. Step three, you'll get an idea of what marketing prices lead to a sale, what marketing prices lead to a sale and which haven't. If you notice a property you like is at £360,000, but none similar is selling at that same price, but stuff similar is marketed at £330,000 before it's selling, then you know you probably shouldn't offer more than £330,000. However, remember that 80% of properties sell below the asking price. So a property marketed as sold at £330,000 could have easily sold at £300,000, £310,000, £320,000. Step four, you now have a rough idea of what is selling for what. If you love the property, bid based on the information you have and wait for the response. It's always better to bid low and compromise up in price, because the possible outcomes you'll have after offering on a property will be either the offer is accepted, in which case you should wonder if you overpaid, would they have accepted less? That's why it's better to bid low and work up. Or if the offer is rejected, in which case a negotiation has started. At this point, you have to make a judgment call based on the seller's response. I believe you should in principle push for the seller to offer a counteroffer to you, and from this make a judgment on if that works based on your research or if you continue the negotiation. Ultimately, if you can't agree a price that works based on your research, you walk away and repeat the process with other properties until something sticks. But you should always loop back to previous properties, even every couple of weeks, in case the seller has changed their mind on your offer. Don't assume the estate agent will do this for you. In the same way you need to do the agent's job in valuing the property, you have to do the agent's job in keeping your offer, your bid, top of mind with the seller. Remember, the best opportunities in the market are often the ones that don't look obvious. In fact, they often look a bit like a property that's been sat on the market unsold, property with little interest, probably slightly overpriced, maybe poorly marketed, and most buyers just scroll past those. But the seller might accept a price far lower than anyone even realizes. And this is where value is created as a buyer. Because if that seller simply dropped the asking price, they'd likely get multiple buyers competing and potentially achieve a higher sale price. But because they haven't, you can step in and secure a deal, a price quietly. That's the opportunity. But another opportunity I think is a real shame that people don't do more of, and I think younger generations in particular should be taking advantage of this, is that sweat equity is your secret weapon. Most buyers want a house with the perfect kitchen, the perfect bathroom, the perfect finish. But there is a cost to this. Instead, look for properties with dated decor, old carpets, tired kitchens, basic bathrooms, things that you can improve over time, because this is where you create value by spending your weekends painting, updating, researching the most cost-effective ways to improve and update your property, your home. But this can also be a bit of a trap. What you should be very careful of is you don't want a property with structural issues. You don't want a money pit. You want a house with good bones that requires essentially cosmetic improvements. Think of it like this in a way. Buy a home and make it a project, something you improve bit by bit over time. Not only do you then increase the value of it, but you also make it your own. And I want to end with the most overlooked step. And I think this is probably going to sound a bit silly, but almost no one does this, and they should. Knock on the neighbours' doors, introduce yourself, ask questions, because bad neighbours can completely ruin your experience of a home and become a nightmare. Because you're not just buying a property, remember, you're buying into a street, you're buying into a community, into an environment, and that matters more than people often realise. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this: don't focus on finding the perfect property, focus on finding a home you like, where the numbers make sense and where you can create value over time. Because this year in 2026, the winners in this market won't be the fastest buyers necessarily, they'll be the smartest. Bye.